the event was over, Lan and I was preparing to go home with her son on her back. Unexpectedly, she met her husband and the family of 4 on the way back. It turned out that her husband had lied about going to the office and had actually gone to meet his ex-wife. Faced with her husband's repeated deception, Lan and I was completely desperate. So that night, while her husband slept, she picked up her phone with trembling hands. What she didn't know was that her husband hadn't fallen asleep at all. While Lan and I anxiously tried to unlock the phone, her husband had quietly come up behind her. Jiho picked up the phone and looked at his wife in disbelief. He never imagined that Lan and I would go through his phone in the middle of the night. How could his usually virtuous wife suddenly turn out like this? Although Jiho did not say the word divorce himself, his words were already very clear. At this time, Lan and I no longer wanted to put up with it. After returning to her room, she slammed the door shut and prepared to vent all the grievances she had endured since her marriage. Lan and I said that she had indeed fallen for Jiho's qualifications when she married him, but after marriage, she had also taken great care of the family. But no matter how much she gives, she is still just a stepmother. Every time she buys her daughter something, she is rejected and insulted. She is told that she is not her real mother and has no right to take care of her. No matter how much she gives, she can't change their opinions. Even her own son has to put up with her daughter's bullying every day. As a mother, she can only choose to tolerate. Not only that, but even now, her husband still calls his ex-wife's mother-in-law. He has never once called her parents. They have been married for so long, but there is still a family photo with his ex-wife hanging in the house. Her husband has never introduced her to his friends, and if she occasionally meets a colleague, she will hide far away. This makes Lan and I feel like she is not the master of this family, but more like a nanny who does the housework and takes care of the children. Because she doesn't want to get divorced again, she chooses to put up with it. But after hearing this, her husband thinks that he has already apologized for these things before, so it has nothing to do with her secretly looking through his phone. Lan and I vents her emotions and turns away, but Jiho grabs him, hoping that Lan and I would listen to his explanation. But in the end, Lan and I still didn't give him a chance to explain. However, when she returned to her parents' house, she found that her parents were also arguing. After persuading her parents, Lan and I was too ashamed to mention her own husband. Poor her. Now she even doesn't have a place to stay. She wanted to find a hotel to get by for one night, but she embarrassingly found that apart from her husband's card, she didn't have any spare cash. Meanwhile, Jiho sat on the sofa in the living room with a vacant stare, and, after thinking about his wife's experience, he also felt his own problem. So he immediately got up and went out to pick up his wife and bring her home. As soon as he left the house, he saw his wife standing on the roadside with a face full of grievances. Jiho didn't hesitate to go up to her and hug her tightly. He explained to his wife that the reason he lied was also to prevent her from thinking about things at home alone. Moreover, he really hadn't done anything to let her down. Jiho promised that this kind of thing would never happen again. Faced with her husband's apology, the kind Lan and I also chose to forgive. After this incident, her husband also began to be honest with his wife. The relationship between the couple gradually became very close, but the eldest daughter saw this and was very jealous inside. The next day, she took the dyed clothes and angrily found Lan and I. Her daughter's unreasonable behavior happened to be seen by Jiho, who was about to go out. He directly scolded his daughter, "How dare you yell at your elders?" As a junior. At this point, Jiho finally understood how much his wife usually tolerated at home, but his daughter still didn't know when to stop. She threatened to run away and go live with her real mother. Jiho angrily grabbed his daughter and confiscated her phone before sending her to her room to think about what she had done. But the older daughter took all her anger out on her stepmother. That day, Lan and I accidentally discovered that her son had actually wet the bed. But her son was already 9 years old and long past the age of wetting the bed, so she took her son to see a psychologist, and learned that her son actually had a serious case of depression. Because he had been bullied by his older sister for a long time and didn't dare to resist, it had caused a lot of pent-up anger in Tom's heart, because he was worried about his mother. That's why he kept putting up with it. After hearing this, Lan and I felt extremely guilty. If she hadn't been so humble, her son wouldn't have developed depression. In order to help her son resume treatment, Lan and I focused all her energy on her son, and stopped tolerating her 2 stepdaughters. The next day, her youngest daughter mocked Tom for wetting the bed. When Lan and I returned home, she immediately lectured her daughter, and told her to apologize to her son. After hearing this, her eldest daughter took her sister to her grandmother to complain, and lied that Lan and I often bullied the 2 sisters at home. After learning about this, her grandmother went home and told her daughter everything. She advised her daughter that it would be best to quickly win her ex-husband back. Meanwhile, the younger daughter saw her younger brother playing with toys while eating, and quickly asked her father to scold him. Jiho was about to speak up, but Lan and I preempted her, and said that snitching was a bad habit, and that they shouldn't snitch on friends at kindergarten. Seeing this, the older daughter deliberately asked her stepmother to get her some water, but Lan and I resolutely refused her request, and taught them to solve problems themselves in the future. Jiho was also shocked by her wife's change. At night, when they went to bed, Lan and I came to her husband and said that she might have to sleep with her son for a while. Then she closed the door, leaving her husband with a puzzled face. The next day, her aunt angrily asked Lan and I why she hadn't done her laundry, but Lan and I didn't neatly endure as she had in the past. She told Anna directly that if she was in a hurry to wear it, she could wash it herself. Her words left her speechless. Later, Lan and I decided to take her son to the playground to relax, so she asked Anna to pick up her daughter from school. Anna was surprised and suspected that Lan and I had taken the wrong medicine, but Lan and I had no intention of considering their feelings. When her husband returned from work, Anna hurriedly complained to her brother. She claimed that her good wife had finally revealed her true face, not washing clothes or doing housework, and only thinking about her own son, and occasionally abuses her two daughters. Jiho was puzzled after hearing this. Recently, his wife's behavior has indeed been a bit unusual. When Lan and I and her daughter had another argument the next day, Jiho first scolded his unrepentant eldest daughter, warning her not to bully her younger brother with her sister in the future. Then he scolded Lan and I alone, not to only care about her own child, and not to distinguish between whose child is whose in the family in the future. Lan and I said that no matter how hard she tried, she could never bridge the gap between them. What was going on between them? The next day, the rebellious eldest daughter even went so far as to skip school. When the ex-wife learned of this, she rushed over angrily to confront Jiho. She thought that Lan and I must have done something to her daughter. Otherwise, the child would not have skipped school for no reason. Jiho then directly called his wife on the phone and scolded her for not even knowing that her daughter had not gone to school. When Lan and I heard the voice of her ex-wife, although she was very angry inside, she eventually restrained herself. Fortunately, her eldest daughter had not run away from home. She was just hiding alone at her grandmother's house. When Jiho and her ex-wife found her, they were directly scolded severely by their daughter. They blamed them for not fulfilling their parental responsibilities after giving birth to her. They made her live in the midst of their endless quarrels since childhood. Moreover, she had to take on the responsibility of taking care of her younger sister every day. Even though she was in pain, she had to endure it and pretend to be strong. The divorce unintentionally caused a lot of psychological harm to their daughters. After Jiho picked up her daughters and returned home, Lan and I, who felt guilty, hurriedly went up to apologize to her eldest daughter. However, Gianna and her husband ignored her and turned directly into their room. Then her husband took out his luggage and lied that he had to go on a business trip for a few days. Before leaving, he warned Lan and I to take care of her two daughters. Countless family conflicts have made both husband and wife feel physically and mentally exhausted. The next day, Lan and I personally took breakfast to please her daughters, but was unexpectedly and fiercely knocked to the ground by her daughter. While her son's depression never subsided, the doctor advised that in order for the child to recover, Lan and I's own sense of happiness must first be enhanced, because Tom's happiness is to see his mother smile every day. Lan and I burst into tears of remorse upon hearing this. The sensible Tom told his mother not to cry. Lan and I then went to her parents' home and told them about her son's illness. Her father suggested that she send the child to her parents' home to be taken care of, but Lan and I directly rejected her father, because she believed that what the child needed most right now was her mother's company. In the evening, Lan and I made her stepdaughter's favorite meals, but the two sisters still ignored their stepmother, and even refused to eat the food Lan and I made, even if it was takeout. Tom said that he also wanted to eat with them, but was directly and ruthlessly rejected by the two sisters. In the evening, Lan and I accidentally discovered the picture book on her son's bedside table. It turned out that her son had vented all his hatred for his sisters on the picture. At this point, Tom's hatred for them had surpassed Lan and I's imagination. For the sake of her son's health, she had to pack up her son's clothes with tears. Although Lan and I was reluctant, she had no choice but to send her son back to his mother's house first. After sending her son away, she also began to take care of her stepdaughter at home. This gradually eased the relationship between them, and Tom's condition also improved under the careful care of his mother's family. Soon after, Jiho finally returned home with her luggage. The couple calmed down and discussed their mistakes together. In the end, they decided to work together to solve the problems between the children. Jiho wanted to ease the rift between Tom and her daughters. Her husband suggested that his wife attend the daughters' family camping trip. This made Lan and I feel flattered. It was the first time she had attended an event as a stepmother after being married for so long. However, her daughters firmly disagreed when they learned about it, and directly told their real mother. Upon hearing this, the ex-wife immediately called Jiho, and said that she must go to her daughter's family camping trip. Jiho felt at a loss for what to do with his unreasonable ex-wife. Meanwhile, Lan and I was preparing fruit and snacks. After much consideration, Jiho chose to compromise by asking his wife to go. He begged his wife not to be angry for the sake of their child. Jiho promised that he would send the child off and come back himself, and asked his wife to prepare dinner for them to eat together when he returned. Lan and I was comforted by her husband's words, and hurriedly prepared her husband's usual favorite meal. However, when Jiho was about to go home after dropping off the child at the destination, he discovered that his ex-wife had accidentally fallen and sprained her foot. Jiho had no choice but to stay and take care of his injured ex-wife, although he took the initiative to text Lan and I and confess the truth. Lan and I, who was looking forward to her husband coming home, felt that her feelings had been trampled on again. Just